happening?
Oh my God.
We're back.
We're back and virtually sitting in different parts of New York.
This is me in space. Surprised that we're, reeling it back. Oh, snap, quarantined.
Welcome back.
Oh my God.
How's quarantine going?
Quarantine is okay. You know, I'm healthy. I'm alive. You know, sometimes I look outside my window and imagine that I'm outside. You know, it's a good thought. What about you? What's happening on your side?
Sometimes I'm outside in my brain, but I'm inside with my body. So, you know, I've been going on a lot of adventures, imaginary adventures in my head. It's crazy. I can't.
Yes.
I'm an extrovert, and this is like.
And it's not drug induced either. So kudos to you.
Good point. So this is episode 3. Can you believe it? I can't.
Tres for our Espanol listeners. Episode 3. Super excited.
Literally moving super fast. And what is it in French? Is it toi?
Toi? On de toi. Toi. Yes. Look at us. We are trilingual. Speaking of tri, you know, there's no better topic to talk about than sex, and it could be done with 2 people or with 3
and
or with
3
0
letters in it.
Whoa, crazy.
No, so I think it's a good topic. I think we should have this. We've all been locked up. There are definitely people who are
not prison locked up, but just locked up
right,
in our homes.
Locked in our homes. So the national pastime, since there's no sports anymore, has been either sex, I'm sure, or masturbation.
Which is a great workout. And on top of that, it's a great way to build your bond with your loved one or with yourself. Let's, you know, hey, exactly.
What better word? It's this 2020 is building a bond with yourself. Self-love.
Yes, exactly. And now that the sports are out, you know, it's America's pastime. Should be sex and masturbation.
Oh my God, maybe when we get back into the real world, it is so, everybody has explored themselves and their partner's bodies so well that it becomes the national sport. And we just watched that we do watch it.
ESPN? Yeah. Maybe it'll be on ESPN by that time.
Oh my God, Pornhub on ESPN with commentators.
With commentators. Oh my God. The world that we will live in 2030 is exciting.
Did you see the way that Jane kind of entered him that way? Oh, it was amazing. Oh, I can't believe.
Did you just throw in an interference because David came through? You know, like imagine.
Oh and he handed off to John.
Imagine during your special time, you have a live commentator during the time that you're having sex.
Not that it's related, but I think that I would enjoy if we lived in a world where we had our own theme music, and as we entered rooms, like that.
Oh my God. I would imagine it to be like the first Batman, like, you know, with the pow and the bang and the words come out. I think that would be so hysterical and also a great throwback.
But the positives, there has to be negatives. So on the whole pow, bam, zooms, you have to have dun 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 dun, like wah, wah, like those sound effects have to come too. Like the guy comes too fast, and it's like
it's like
the girl doesn't orgasm, so she just like rolls over it, and it's like bam, bam, bam. I
know, exactly. Oh my God, it's so crazy. Or like when people don't cuddle after, it's like
the guy like gets that text, and his real wife is like, "Yo, get back! Where are you?" And it's like, and then it's
oh my God,
he runs out of the room because the husband comes home, and it's like.
If our worlds were, if only our worlds were illustrated through cartoon sounds, I think we'd be a lot happier.
We would.
Yeah.
I mean, it would work perfectly with the president right now. Every time you get up to make a speech, it would be like every time, like
all the time.
Oh my gosh.
So sex.
It's good. We should talk about episode 3.
Yes.
To the listeners, sorry, we were on a tangent, but this is episode 3. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about everything that goes in with that.
Yes.
We're excited. This is our very first video.
Yes.
So you'll see this, obviously, if you're watching this, hopefully you are. This is YouTube.
And you get to see our beautiful faces, our Vogue faces. We're
Right.
bringing
Remember
it to
when
you
we're hiding
live.
behind the audio, be like, you have a face for radio. Like, no.
Check it out. We have a face for TV too. Yes, we do.
Yes.
So Danny, I was actually, reminiscing and looking through like old photos as I was pulling up some old childhood photos. And I came across an old prom photo of mine. And I said to myself, oh my God, this reminds me of my first time, because the guy that I went to prom with was also the person that took my virginity. And we definitely, I definitely waited a while. I was like 18 years old, so I was allowed to vote as well as have sexual intercourse. Or
isn't it weird though? Because you saw my prom picture. We're kind of had the reverse situation going on here, right? You're going to prom with a white guy. I'm going to prom with a black Dominican girl. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We live parallel lives all the time.
Craziness.
All the time. So I was thinking about it and I said, and I guess for girls, I doubt it for guys, but like we always imagine our first time to be like something like so special and sacred. And, we imagine ourselves to be like in this white lingerie and like whisked into the bedroom and just, so caring and loving. And
like petals are just like everywhere and champagne is popping and it's like
right.
This bird's tweeting in the background.
Exactly. Like, maybe, you got some Keith Sweat, mixed with John Legend, it's just so like, it's just so euphoric in the way that, a woman thinks they're going to lose their virginity. And of course, mine was the total opposite.
I mean, ditto.
Yeah. It was just like, I remember it was the day before prom. And this gets real when I'm like punching. It was the day before prom. And it was a rainy day. And I just remember kind of saying, oh, let's just kind of get this over with, and I liked the guy a lot. We were dating for a couple months. I felt like I trusted him. And it was just so like mechanical and just didn't have any feeling in it. No intimacy. And I really felt at one point, I was like, does he not know that I was like a virgin? Because he almost treated me as if like I was like a trained professional. And I was like, hey, this actually doesn't feel great. And you're taking my virginity. And can you please, treat with kid gloves? So I didn't have that experience. My first experience wasn't good, but I felt like it was like ripping off a Band-Aid. Like I had to do it in order to have better experiences. And let the scab kind of heal over and then, be good again. But yeah,
I mean, we put up so much like expectations, right? Of what we are hoping it might be the first time or we're thinking. And you're right. You're 100% right in a sense where guys and girls definitely approach it differently.
How'd you approach it, brother?
For me, it was very like a checklist item, in a sense where in high school I dated a lot. I wasn't a player, but I had a lot of different people I dated here and there, and multiple people at the same time, and they all knew I was dating other people. Like it was never like a monogamous. If I ever had a girlfriend, it was like done. Like, but like I was playing the field.
Let me get this straight, Danny. You weren't a player, but you crushed a lot. Is that what I'm hearing?
I ain't a
that was a
player,
good
I
one.
just fucking
lie. Yes. Yes.
That was
shout out to Joe and
Big
Pun.
Big Pun. Yes.
R.I.P. Solid.
I ain't a player, I just fucking lie.
That was I wasn't a player. I definitely although I remember, this is a weird story. This one girl who I did like a lot, she thought I was a player because like we went on a date the very next day. We had a great time, great date. The very next day in school, apparently, I found this out years later. I had no clue why she stopped talking to me, but apparently the next day in school, she saw me leaning up against the wall talking to some other girl, completely cut me off. Like she wouldn't return any of my phone calls, nothing. I had no clue until I ran into her, like literally like 6 years later. My 10th grade girlfriend though, same thing happened where She cut me off randomly. This was like my girlfriend. Like, this was my girl. Cut me off. Never heard from her. Like, I was like, what the hell? No clue. Actually, it might have been 11th grade. Over a decade later, like I'm maybe even 15, 20 years later, right?
Yeah.
This was recently with like, in modern era. I run into her. We were always friends, like on Facebook and stuff. So then we hang out. We never hooked up. We never slept together. And then like I'm like we're like, oh, we hang out. We end up living in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn. Like literally, she lived like 6 blocks from me. So we hang out, and then of course,
so serendipitous, by the way. Like you just
it was, I mean, literally like crazy. And this was like in high school. If I was to really look back at it, like I might have been, I probably was in love with this girl in high school.
Aww.
You know, like Valentine's Day, writing cards, all that stuff. So when she cut it off, like when I didn't hear from her again, I was like I was not, I'm not gonna say I was heartbroken, but I was just like, I didn't get it. Like I was like, all right, whatever, on to the next one. Again, 15 years later, she's living in my neighborhood. We hang out, we walk over, we meet up, we hook up, right?
Oh.
Yeah. So I finally sleep with her like 20 years after like the time we like it never
and for
happened.
the listeners, this is still not Danny's first time, or is it?
No. Oh my God, man. Yes, I lost my virginity when I was in my 30s. Like,
how sweet.
What am I? What's his name? 30-year-old virgin.
40-year-old virgin. Steve Carell, one of my favorite movies of all time. Yes.
Anyway, I'll end the story with her. So, but the point is that I asked her, hey, just curious what happened. She told me that some friend, like a mutual friend that liked her, right? That ended up telling her that she saw me with somebody, that he saw me with some girl on like Jamaica Ave, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And never happened. And he just did it to throw shade. And I was like, what? And I was so mad. I was like, are you kidding me? Who knows what would have happened through high school if this dude didn't try and just sabotage our relationship? I was like, yo, why would you believe him? She's like, I don't know. I was vulnerable. I was, anyway, first time. Checklist.
Yeah.
Like,
but by the way, we're going to give a big bomb alert to the guy that played my boy Danny, okay? Because of you have basically stifled him away from love. So for us and our listeners, you're getting the bomb alerts.
Damn bum.
We are definitely, good point, Jen. We are definitely dropping the bomb on this dude.
Bomb.
You played yourself. Anyway, I still got love for the girl. She's awesome. She's great. But who knows what would have happened.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message. I love you. Now, back to our show.
First time.
Yes.
So I didn't have sex in high school. Okay. And
you were a toddler. Yes.
No, it was in between high school and college. It was the summer between high school and college. And I remember I was dating this girl named Diane. And
she wasn't Dirty Diana, was she? No.
I mean, maybe.
Ooh, this is getting so smoky.
I mean, she was definitely Dirty Diana, and I was a smooth criminal. So, yes, she asked me to beat it, and then we found out that Billie Jean was not my lover. So,
ooh, dropping some heat today.
It was good though. It was kind of a thriller. It started off, she was up against the wall, and then, all right, enough with the mic. I might have to moonwalk up on out of here.
You are cracking me up.
Anyway,
keep it going.
So
Diane, Dirty Diana.
High school and college, and the reason was because, like I said, it was a checklist thing because I didn't want to go to college a virgin.
Okay.
So like this was just some regular girl. I was dating her not even like a month or two. I don't even know. Couldn't have been that long because it was summer, right? So I remember I was 17 because my birthday is July 31st. I was gonna turn. I did it before I was 18. I remember doing it. I was like, I have to do this. I can't be 18 and going to college and still be a virgin. So to your point, and I know it was a long-winded path for me to get there, but it's like it was totally like not as I expected. You know, I definitely would have loved for it to have been that girl. I'm not going to drop her name, but yeah, I would have loved for it to have been her. That 10th grade sweetheart. I did really like her. Or I would have not been mad if it was the girl I went to prom with. but that was a weird situation. Like, it was literally like we started dating in February before prom. We like dated for what, 4 months, went to prom, and then like we literally, like, day after prom, we didn't even talk. It was crazy.
Same thing with mine. Like, we didn't even really speak like after prom. Like, it was that week where we just like cut off communication. I think we like went out on a date like a year later, and we were just kind of like, I'm good. You're good. I'm good. Yeah. It was just, yeah. Wah, wah, wah.
But the first time I remember, like, and I don't know how it was for you, like you were mentioning it, but like the actual first time, like literally, like we were at like a house party. So I know it was like a house party. I remember like, and it's funny because you know the J. Cole song "Wet Dreams."
Yes.
So,
by the way, he went to St. John's, which is my former college. Yeah, we were in the same grade.
That's crazy.
Go
but
figure.
it was like his song was so perfect. I remember when I first heard that song. I feel like that was the first song I even put my son on to J. Cole about. But it was crazy because like he describes it pretty accurately. He goes, you know that feeling when you're fin and bone for the first time, hoping she won't notice it's my first time, basically like that was it. Like it was like, you try and play it off like you're like, you're a pro,
Right.
And like, but then at the end of the day, you're like him. You're like, you're praying to God, don't let me bust quick. I was watching pornos just to, see how to stroke right. Practicing like putting condoms on. How it go right. So it was definitely like it was boom. J. Cole definitely nailed it with that song, and that's how it was. And then it was. To this day, I couldn't even tell you if I had sex with him more than once. I don't even remember. I feel like our relationship ended after the summer. I don't remember if we continued to have sex or it was just that one time. And I also don't know. I would love to know if she felt like I was a virgin. I'm sure she did. There's definitely that feeling. Or even, I don't even know if she was. Like, there was not even a conversation. It was almost like literally it was a superficial dating period in the summer. So.
Yeah. I mean, like, I kind of feel like women and even men too, like they can probably sense how nervous you are. And that nervousness connotes how much of a novice you are. Or I have to say too, like when I have been in loving relationships, I too have gotten nervous.
Yeah.
As having first time sex with my boyfriends, because you're just like, oh my God, there's this great buildup and you guys have built so much like love and admiration. And then finally that time comes. And I remember also like feeling that sense of nervousness as if it was my first time being in a relationship and having sex for the first time with my boyfriend or my exes. So I remember it, but it was like cute nervous. It was like, oh my God, we like each other. Oh my God, we're gonna like do this. But you
the
okay?
feeling doesn't go away to a certain extent. And what I mean is like, I genuinely, even as experienced as I am now, that first time feeling for me with somebody, I still love. Like, I forget who said it, is like a quote, but they said you can never get the feeling of the first time you take a woman's underwears off. You know what I'm saying? Because that first feeling, that first time is still, to me, it's always still special. No matter how quick, whether what type of sex it is, if it's recreational, if it's quick, if it's a quickie, or if it's relationship sex, or it doesn't matter. I feel like that there's something about that very first time still for me. But speaking of, what do you think, or how do you define sex? How do you like, for you, what's sex for Jen? Like,
what is sex? So I would definitely say like growing up, like my parents didn't have like the sex talk with me. It was pretty much, I learned what sex was from like friends and like sex ed. And so just backtracking, I went to a Catholic school, so they can't really dig deep into sex education as much, because you're getting taught sex education by a nun. And how much can she dig into sex education being someone that's abstinent? Not much.
Well, also from a religious standpoint, sex is taught from
only between married couples.
Yeah, but also for a purpose, right? It's purposeful. It's for intimate married relations or for procreation. So
Correct. So I think when I was a lot younger, I kind of looked at it. I have different words during different phases of my life. So when I first started, I was like, sex to me was like, oh, it's routine. right? It was like a routine thing. It was like, all right, you like this person, he likes you, just do it because that's part of your relationship. Because I didn't really enjoy it, but nor did I really know what my body was, and I didn't really get to explore what my body was. I didn't get to explore what I found pleasurable in my young 20s. So I kind of felt like it was very routine because I didn't really enjoy it. And then
But
when I
also
got
as a
older,
woman, I'm sure that the misogyny of the way we're taught about sex is you were a vessel for the man to get pleasure.
exactly. And like, you know, not to take this down like a rabbit hole, but, you know, I experienced, you know, sexual assault when I was 19. And for me at that age, and the guy was older, he was in his 30s. And although I was never raped, having that sexual assault experience definitely clouded my view of what sex is. So it became routine. Then it became a thing that was, to me, a source of pain at one point because I identified that as a guy using his power over me. And then luckily being in loving relationships after that with men, I found it to be more of an intimate sharing and more of like this energy exchange and trust and believe, like I get a great workout. I remember one time I definitely wore a Fitbit while I was
Really?
because I was curious. I was like, how much calories am I burning with this? Let's just say in comparison to like a HIIT class, which is high interval training and sex, on par.
Yeah, well, I
par.
did read something where they said it's the average sex, not even like crazy. Average sex is equivalent to running 1 mile.
Yeah. No, I believe it. I freaking believe it. So I think
see
like
a lot of skinny mofos coming out of this quarantine.
Well, we hope. We only could hope. Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think like when I fell into loving relationships, it definitely changed for me. And I thought of it being like a cute, emotional exchange. And it was very loving and very tender. And it just cemented my relationship with my exes that much more because we were able to be so vulnerable. I would say like the most vulnerable moment that I've ever had was a precursor to sex, was actually when my ex and I took a bath together and just like stood naked in front of each other. And I was like, wow. And we were just laying in this bath. And that was a sense of intimacy that I never experienced. And I was only like 26 or 27. So I was like, well, that's what sex should be. But yeah, it changes. But, you know, again, like it also depends on who you're with. You know, if you guys are just doing it for fun, it could be recreational. If it's something that, you know, with the person that you care about, it could be something that's loving, a physical act of the love that you guys share, you know?
Yeah.
So it's I guess it's different for what situation that you're in, but
And
now at
for
my
me,
age,
like I use sex as like, I hate that I hate that people try and define in a sense where it should be and how you should feel with your partner.
Yeah.
To the listeners, what do you think? What does sex look like for you with the person you're with? And I don't mean the act of sex. I mean the conversation, the emotional attachment to it. For example, is it recreational for you? Is there an energy exchange like Jen just mentioned, or do you feel like you still haven't hit this imaginary or not imaginary, but this preconceived like level of where you need to be at in order for sex to be this romanticized vision of what you think it is? So right. I think that's a question you should ask yourself. I ask myself that often. I think each partner that I'm with, it's always different. And then even with each partner, it's different each time. So, but I'm also like an old school romantic, to be honest. I do believe in making love. I know it's cliche. I do believe that happens.
God. Cue the music. Cue the music. Da, da, da,
no,
making love. I cannot remember or recall a man that says making love. Not that it's a bad thing. I think it's actually more men should say it. But I don't know why it's not said anymore.
Because
I don't know why. Why do you think that is?
It has connotations of being weak in a
And
sense.
vulnerable. Yes.
But for me, this is going to maybe sound weird, but I don't think you need to, I don't feel like you have to be in love to make love. And what I mean by that is like, for me, the way I define making love is a true full circle of the experience, meaning that there's the physical act, you feel emotional connection and spiritual connection, but I also feel like there's this aura thing that happens, and where two people truly like, you feel this energy where like it's happened to me probably many times where I can, while in the act, I don't know if you've ever done this, or to anybody who's listening has ever done this, do you feel comfortable or confident in that moment of sexual intercourse where you can look at the person dead in the eyes? And I've done that. And that's when I know it's more than just sex, when I can like literally stare at the person and, you know, just
you're staring into our listeners' eyes
and
intently.
like, you know, you're just like, you're making out with them while you're having sex, and you're looking at them, and it's just like, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm giving you my all. And that's kind of like the way I approach sex. And that's kind of,
there is a sense of like transcendence, right? I think like when you are in it and you're in that moment and you, like you say, you lock eyes with that person and your bodies are almost become in sync, like almost fluid.
Yep.
It's like, it's just like transcends any rational understanding, and you're just in this flow. And I've been there before, and that is probably the closest thing that I would imagine sex to be. But again, there's many different spectrums of what sex could be, but that's what I always like to have as like the pinnacle. Like, okay, I like to hit that. Doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you just need to get your rocks off. But
how was sex explained to you as a child, though? Like, what
it wasn't really explained. Yeah, it wasn't really explained. It was, well, it was very
don't
like
do it.
elementary.
You said don't do it, right? That's what you said in the other episode.
Right. My dad was like, hey, you know, this sex thing, don't do it. You know, we said, no. So, and my, you know, it was very much like, yeah, a man and a woman get together. They have this physical act. They should do it with protection. My parents definitely stress the protection portion of it. Like, make sure the guy is clean, make sure the guy is wearing a condom, make sure that, you know, it's consensual, make sure that that's, you know, that's a huge word. And even back in the day, in the 90s and early 2000s, the word consensual was said in my household. Now, if we're thinking about it in the Me Too era, like consensual is like the main common thread, just talking about anything that relates to how a man should be treating a woman, and it being consensual and being on an equal basis.
That was one of the questions that we asked to the audience was
we did
about a consent and having the conversation with when should the sex talk happen, and then when should you have the conversation about consent. I did have, for example, one of the responses that was brilliant. It's almost like what you're saying about consent from Sister Rez. She said that consent should begin at a young age, even not even sex related, but if grandma wants a hug, the kid should be taught about consent and being able to make the choices for their own bodies and stuff. I think that was brilliant. Thank you, Sister Rez, for your feedback. I think that it's a great point. I had zero of that, like not even like 0.1% of a conversation about sex with my parent, either parent.
So how did your parents explain it to you, or did they even have the talk?
We didn't. Zero.
Okay.
0 times 0 times 0. It's something that I, you know,
figured out on the job.
Yeah, on the job training. I didn't have an apprenticeship or anything like that. It was like figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
So I definitely, because I'm a dad, I definitely knew that I would not do that to my son, but also I would enjoy having all types of conversations with him. So I did have the conversation early with him. He must have been like 10 years old, and we were sitting in a Wendy's, and I was just like, here's a piece of corn, and here's a sesame seed, and I explained the whole fertilization thing, and then you could see he was getting a little red-faced, and I didn't care. We had the conversation. I was very transparent about what it is. I had the conversation, like, to your point about the religion, learning from that aspect, I made sure in the conversation that my conversation about sex, that it wasn't taught or spoken or the lesson wasn't about it's for married people. It's to do. I didn't do that. I was like, it's people do it for procreation. People do it to have kids, and that's when I explained the whole corn and this. But then I also explained people do it because it feels good. I said, but the main point is like you want to make sure that every time you do it, or it means something. It's not a throwaway. I don't mean, and that's how I live.
That should never be a throwaway, because I recall, like, even, and again, I definitely have had many different experiences just exploring my own sexuality, in the sense of, you know, getting to learn my body and having boyfriends as partners, and their ways of having sex are different from the others. And I do recall just remembering, like, when I used to have sex with someone that I wasn't in a relationship with, but we were very much like, you know, just buddies, with a wink.
Like friends with benefits?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. FWBs, not to be confused with SWB. So I remember, like, you know, I had a buddy, and he was a long-term buddy. You know, we were buddies for a while.
My buddy.
And he was my buddy.
Wherever I go, he goes, my buddy.
Yes. But I remember, and it wasn't anything as a discount to him, but I just, because my understanding and what sex should be had changed when the last time that we were together and we did it, I just felt like depleted, like energetically depleted. Not to say that he did anything wrong. It's just because we weren't in that type of relationship where it was like loving, or we formed that sense of intimacy. And I feel like if we had, it would be totally different. And that's no discount to him. But, you know, I just kind of felt like it was just kind of like a Kanye shrug, you know, it's just like,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. You felt like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
It wasn't there. And that's when you kind of like, that's a bad time, because let's say you were actually in a relationship with somebody and that happens. It's really hard to recover from that. So
really hard, really, really hard. And then, but also to that point too, I got home and I was like, why did I feel depleted? Is it because I didn't have like feelings towards this person? And I was like, no. And I was like, well, maybe I need to really dig deep into what I define as pleasurable as a female. Right? Because I feel like, you know, for men, they're like, you know, you have this external unit, you know, that's how I name the penis, the external unit, the plug. And with women, we have like this,
internal unit.
Yes, internal unit. I will love to call it the universe that gives creation, you know, a tunnel for creation to come out. But that's just me. You guys get a plug. We get like, you know, a telescope, if you will. I don't know. Anyways, there's so many ways that a flower of whatever. So many ways. A kaleidoscope. Oh.
That's my 2020 term for it. Yes.
Kaleidoscope.
Like, look at all the colors.
It should be, because there's so much that goes on. There's so much. Like
hashtag kaleidoscope 2020.
Kaleidoscope. Yes. Kaleidoscope movement. Maybe that should be like sex education for women, and we call it the kaleidoscope movement. I love it.
Some new shit. We better trademark this. Hold on.
Trademark it now. Do it now before this airs.
I put that in my bra strap.
Thank you so much. But yeah, no, to that point, I was like, maybe I didn't do the homework on my end to make sure that it was pleasurable for me. You know, maybe I was just paying attention so much to it being pleasurable for him that I was like, hold up, time it back, reel it back here. Like, how am I making this a pleasurable experience for me too? You know, am I saying, oh, this feels good, this doesn't feel good, oh, I would prefer it like this, I don't prefer it like that? Like, I didn't give any feedback in that sense. I was just kind of like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? Is like, that's why people say as you get older, the sex gets better, right? And
yes.
And it's because you learn. It's not just about you learn about your own body. It's not because you approach it differently, but it's because you learn to finally, or hopefully, you learn to finally communicate. You learn to communicate, being honest with yourself as well as with your partner. You learn to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Go here, don't go here. flick it this way.
Flick it, no, don't flick it at all. I don't know, right?
But would you say that foreplay is a necessity?
For me now, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a necessity, but because let's see, foreplay for me is an interesting thing. It's a great warm up, right? So I'm an avid gym goer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm an avid gym goer. If I'm going to the gym, I'm not just going to hop on the treadmill and run 10 miles. I got to warm it up, right? I got to warm up my quads, got to do some stretches, you know what I mean? Because my performance as a runner or someone that is going to lift weights that experience is going to be so much better if I do the proper warm up prior to that.
Right.
So I say that to say that that's the metaphor for me. It's like, yeah, foreplay is not necessary for everyone, because some people are like, let's just get right to it. I don't have time. Parents that have like little ones running around, maybe they don't have time for foreplay. And I understand that. Kind of have to get it in, get it out. But I think for me, it's like for it to be pleasurable for me, I think it is a requirement for me. But again, sex is a large spectrum, right? Some people may not like foreplay. Some people are like, let's just get to it,
Yeah.
So it's different. It's different. Is it a necessity for everyone? No. Is it like a prerequisite for me? Yeah, I would say so. What about you?
So the answer to the question is, or we can go more a little bit more modern and quote Lil Wayne.
All right.
And on Motivation with Kelly Rowland, and he goes, girl, I turned that thing into a rainforest, rain on my head, call that brainstorming. Yeah, this is deep. Oh, I go deeper, make you lose yourself and find its keepers. It go green light, go easy go. I like to taste that sugar, that's sweet and
low. I get it.
So I think that answers your question.
I'm gonna go with, then the answer is yes. Cool.
I think it's yeah. I'm gonna say
Yep.
I'm gonna say it's pretty good.
Yes. Also, question for you: have you ever used? You don't even know what I've. Yes. Have you ever used a sex toy to have you ever incorporated a sex toy into foreplay or into the act of sex?
I'm gonna say yes, but one of my
it's
exes, like that person who would love to go to like Adam and Eve, or would love to go to like Babeland and be like, hey, Papa, look what I brought. So yes,
she possesses like this. Look what I bought.
Yeah, she was like pulling it out.
I imagine her having like a trench coat back in like the 80s where they opened the thing up and they had like, I got this, I got this, I got that, I got this.
She could be like Nelly, you could have whatever you like. Oh man. Oh, God, as you may see,
you know what I thought about it? In the era of quarantine, that would totally work. Instead of a guy with a trench coat having like gold jewelry, it could be a guy with sex toys and just walking around the neighborhood, because God knows he would make money.
And he'd probably be arrested.
Probably.
So I have a handful of times. It isn't something that makes me like ooh, I have to do this again. Or it's important. So yeah, I mean, I've definitely done it, and I've done like the cock rings, and I've done like different toys, vibration, or like ropes and stuff like. So yeah, I've done it all.
What are you, Christian Grey over here? What's happening? Like, okay, I got it. By the way, that's been on rotation for the last month and a half, and I always am like fascinated because I read the book.
Christian Grey is what? That's the
50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I read the books because everyone's like, the words are so beautiful. I'm like, girl, you are talking about, S&M right here. Like, yeah. And like, but the whole thing, like they romanticize the S&M because the woman that Christian Grey fell in love with, it helped to like change his ways. And then he became a good guy, but he had cycles of abuse, all that stuff. But I remember majority of the women that went to go see that movie the day that it came out, I'm going to go with 99.9% women.
45-year-olds.
45-year-old.
Yeah, I don't know any guys. Honestly, I don't know any guys who went to that, even with their girlfriends. Like, they didn't go. It was like a women one with their girlfriends.
It probably was like shameful. There's like, oh, great, I'm going to an S&M romantic rom-com with my girlfriend. Yeah, no, it's not happening.
I don't think it was a shame thing. I think, like, I remember I was dating somebody at the time, and they asked me to go to see the movie, and I was like, I don't want to. For guys, we're very visual, right? In a sense where we're going to get turned on in a movie theater, and we're sitting in a movie theater. Like,
right. And then you're Pee Wee Herman all over again.
Exactly. No, if she was like, let's watch that at home on Netflix, I'm like, all right, cool, because the movie will be like 30 minutes in, and we're gonna be like, all right, movie off. Like,
yeah, you're gonna be like, so what are you thinking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to walk out of that movie with your girlfriend, and then also, side note, the same reason we don't like to go to some rom-coms with our girls. Like, yeah, we do it, but the ones that are, I'm talking about the rom-coms that have like some trifling shit in it. So like it's like the other woman or some, like, we don't want to go to those because you don't want to walk out of the theaters and the girl be like, you don't have a girlfriend side?
Yeah.
Who's Becky with the good hair? Like, we didn't know. Like, we weren't listening to Beyonce with our booze at the same time. We was like, you could listen to that? I'm gonna listen to 444. We can,
Yeah.
So I think we guys genuinely don't like awkward moments of conversation that women thrive on. They love to be like, what do you think about what? Mm-hmm.
Right. But I would definitely say, like, looking deeper into 50 Shades of Grey, I didn't even know the universe of all of these sex toys that existed. And I was like, have I been living under a rock? Because I was like, that they have this, they have that, this does this. Why do you need that? What does this do? I was like, my mind was like blown. And I was like, wow, there's a whole universe and an industry that is thriving like no other.
This is great that you're even talking about this, because not only is this our first episode that we're doing video to put on YouTube, but this is also our first episode where we have
a guest.
This is phenomenal.
Shout out to our guests. Yes, guys, we're stepping up in the world. Episode 3, bringing y'all guests. What? Never thought it. Mine is blown. I know. For our listeners, we wanted to bring you guys some dope content, and we're super excited because we have Vanessa Cuccia, who is the co-founder of Chakrubs, which is a sex toy company that specializes in making crystal sex toys. So it's all about bridging healing and sexual chakral energy and blending them into these beautiful sex toys that for both men and for women. So we're so excited to take you guys to that wonderful segment where we interview the lovely Vanessa.
So for all of you Unprovoked Tangents listeners out there, stay tuned for the next segment. We're excited. Here we go, and enjoy.
So I recently read an article that we are in the midst of what they call a pleasure revolution, which I'm super excited about. And now there are certain founders in the pornography and sex toy industry and sex education platforms that are having a huge surge, especially in the era of COVID-19. And there was a recent report that came out that the global sex toy market alone is expected to be worth $35 billion by 2023, which is up from $23.7 billion just 3 years ago. So in the era of COVID-19, where people are home and also kind of exploring certain things, either out of boredom or just having the time to explore your pleasure, I wanted to introduce you guys to our first guest for our show. She is the founder of Chakrubs, Vanessa Cuccia. And what's wonderful about her company is that she produces sex toys made from natural crystals. So we're talking about the amethyst and the rose quartz of the world. And these handcrafted tools are created with the intention of opening oneself to the healing properties of crystals. Chakrubs have been featured on glamour.com, oprahmagazine.com, and the company also has a wonderful platform called Freak Magazine, which is a medium that covers art, music, culture, through the lens of spirituality. So without further ado, we are so excited to have Vanessa Cuccia on through Zoom. Thank you so much for joining our Unprovoked Tangents podcast on the topic of sex and dating.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Amazing. This is going to be exciting. Vanessa, so glad that you're on. I'm Danny. I'm one of the hosts for Unprovoked Tangents. Thank you for taking this time. I use pronouns he, him. So I'd like to definitely welcome you to part of our small families as it's growing right now. And I would love to know more about you from what the internet doesn't tell us. I mean, can you tell us, tell our listeners, tell anybody who might come across this who you are, what's your story? How you became Vanessa Cuccia?
Sure. Where do I start? I grew up in Long Island, New York, and my father is a chiropractor and inventor. He created a non-surgical device to straighten the spine. So I bring that up because I grew up surrounded by anatomical photos in his office, all about straightening. Yes, sitting up straight.
I felt like I had to straighten my back at that moment.
Yeah, well, it's all about your energy being able to flow freely. And I would come home. I was just talking about this with my friend. I would come home and he would be standing on his head, doing yoga in our living room. He used to have seizures as a child and says that he healed that through yoga and that practice. My mother was a piano teacher. She was classically trained pianist, and she had a paranormal experience when I was very young that led our household to be a place where we had to talk about spirituality and things that we couldn't necessarily see. We had to talk about because of these strange occurrences that were happening. My mother became clairvoyant. She was very open to a lot of things, started doing meditation music, all in the realm of sound healing and everything. So that was my upbringing. So I was, around these ideas that, I was raised by healers. They were, that was the thing, and creative healers at that. My father was, being an inventor, my mother being a musician. It was all about creating something for the world to heal. So, so when I was in my early 20s, I had made the realization that I was in a relationship for 6 years, since I'm 17, that was not healthy, that was not healing, that was not nurturing, and it was quite the opposite. But I had been kind of asleep in this relationship, just, I don't know why, but it was like I was asleep. I think I had gone through some trauma early on in the relationship that caused me to kind of become numb in my body, in my emotions and everything, and I was just kind of drifting along. And it was just a realization when I was in my early 20s where I was like, holy shit, I'm a quarter way done with my life, or maybe more, and I'm not enjoying sex. I had become so numb, and I was just okay with the fact that I was subconsciously learning that sex and pleasure was for my boyfriend, and it was not something that I was meant to enjoy. But I think that that little thought of death had me come to this standpoint that I was like, wait, I want to experience pleasure. Life sucks enough. I need to find these things that make it rich. And I knew that sex was a part of that, and pleasure. There was a disconnect for me because I came to this understanding that I didn't just need that orgasm. I didn't just need that, like, that feeling. I needed to connect with myself, because in this relationship I had been disconnected to the point where my body was literally numb, where I was allowing myself to be in this relationship that was not good.
So how did you take that journey of knowledge and those, whether they were emotional experiences or exciting experiences, or learning experience, or traumatic experience, how did that create, I guess, the path for you to start Chakrubs?
Well, it was at this time that I was with my spiritual teacher friend who I mentioned, and we went to this woman's house who had a large collection of crystals, and she brought one out, and it was a polished, it was like a generator stone, so it was like a, you know, a wand, and something clicked, and I heard the name Chakrubs pop into my head. Mm. And I said out loud, with this spiritual, like, group of people that were all meeting to talk about the world and the Mayan prophecies. This is 2011, you know, this was like around this time that we were all afraid that the world was going to end. And so they were like having this very important meeting. And I just heard the name Chakrubs come into my head. And I said out loud just that crystals would be a great sex toy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful in what you said, Vanessa, because I am too. I am a owner of many crystals, and I understand, like, all of these crystals have different healing properties in order to heal yourself from an emotional, mental, and even a physical standpoint. And, you know, I think there is this great correlation, especially thinking about the chakras in our bodies. You know, we have this great sexual chakra that, you know, even women and sometimes men don't really pay attention to a lot. So the fact that you blended both of those worlds together, and as you said, kind of facilitated this company, I think it's just so wonderful, because there is a direct correlation between a spiritual journey and a sexual journey, and how do we then bridge everything together into one. So I think that's an important point that you made.
Absolutely. Yeah. There is, you know, our different chakras, for those who don't know, they're points of energy in our bodies that correlate to different psychological, emotional, physical aspects of who we are. But I believe, and wrote about it in my book, Crystal Healing and Sacred Pleasure, that every chakra has to do with sexuality in some degree, because we are sexual beings as a whole. That's what we are. That's the nature of who we are. We're created from that. And so you can't, to me, sexuality isn't separate from spirituality. It's one and the same. So sensuality is sexuality, and that, to me, when you're embracing the senses, you're embracing being human. That's embracing your spirituality, because you're recognizing that you're a spirit experiencing human facilities.
I love that. I mean, it's so funny, because combined with what Jen said about the crystals and what you just said, I mean, I know I'm a man, and you know, we don't tend to outwardly show that we're spiritual, or we believe that sex is part of that. But I have a unique take on sex, in a sense where exactly what you said, Vanessa, is where it's almost like the rainbow philosophy for me. So the rainbow is all the colors combined into one. And that's what I feel like sex is. It literally is the only thing that I think we experience as humans that combine all of our five senses into one, and one action. And what's really cool to me, and which is why when Jen first told me about you and about this interview and got me excited, what excited me about it is that when it comes to sex toys, I think people tend to just buy toys as a toy, or as an object to achieve a certain expectation of orgasm, and then they're done with it. It goes back in a drawer. I think what's interesting about your company, and you tell me if this is what you were saying, is that I feel like if you approach it, and if you're taking something that is a healing stone or healing crystal, you're no longer just using it as a vice to get to a certain, I guess, end goal. It's now actually part of your whole journey, bringing an extra energy into that. So I don't think you would approach even just the masturbation the same way as you would with a general toy.
Exactly. That's the whole point. And that's really well said. I think that because they're made out of stone, out of something that we recognize as having the ability to facilitate our ability to heal whatever trauma we might have endured from heartache or sexual abuse or anything like that, we do approach it differently. And it isn't about this end goal. It is a instant gratification that happens because you are using it for pleasurable massage, but it's a lasting transformation because you're doing what you said, approaching it in a very different way. So you're approaching it in this light that is, I want to recognize that which is holding me back from being open to love. You know, that the rose quartz chakra, I call the heart. It's all about the heart opening up to love that is ever present all around us. But when we have heartache and heartbreak and breakups and everything, we start building up this wall and we start to say, I have to protect this. I have to not be vulnerable because I've been hurt in the past and I don't want to do that. But we know that that ends up hurting us more later on. So rose quartz is all about letting that down, realizing that love is there for you to give and take as much as possible. And so when you're working with a heart chakra that is made from rose quartz, you're experiencing pleasure and that energy of understanding that I want to be open to love. I want to bring down these walls so I can experience divinity that is being in love. And that could be with myself or another person.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, you know, I'm in my 30s and I would definitely say in my 20s, I was just like, sex, okay. Sure, fine. It's part of the relationship. But I think as I get older and I really start to dive deep into who I am and do the introspective work and do the self-awareness work, I define sex in a different way. I define it as this emotional, energetic exchange between two people. And I feel like for me personally, if I don't have that with my partner, and we look at it more as like a recreational activity, then for me, the importance and that bond of sex is null and void at that moment, for me at least. And I don't know if you could relate to that.
Yeah, I could absolutely relate to that. I think that for me, what it's about is the recognition that whatever it is, it's sacred. So even if I experience if I experience sex with somebody and it is purely recreational, purely hedonistic, purely just like, you know, the nastiest thing ever, at the end of the day, because of what I have come to understand is that that is sacred as well. That is meaningful to my process as a human as well. So that was something that I learned through working with Chakrubs. So
that's a great, I love it, because Jen, you tried to challenge me on that in an earlier episode. I said sex is recreational too. Like, it can be recreational. And that doesn't mean I'm bringing any less energy to that one night stand or that hedonistic moment that I wouldn't bring to a relationship, but I don't need to be in a loving relationship to have amazing sex. And it's funny because it goes back to an early point you made, Vanessa, which I wrote down actually because I thought it was genius. I think that a lot of women, and I'm not speaking from a woman's perspective, but a lot of women tend to, especially in their early years, when they're learning about sexuality, whether it's however they approach it with their boyfriends or whoever, they're having sex, to your exact words, is they're having sex for their boyfriend. And it's for their boyfriend's pleasure. And it's like, oh, their boyfriend enjoyed it, check mark.
So good question for you, because I know that you have many fans, and I'm sure many repeat customers that buy just all your wonderful lines, from your Yanni eggs to everything in between. So what is sort of the best approach, tips, or advice you can give to a man, woman, or couple, anything they should know before buying a toy, maybe together, maybe separately? What advice would you give them?
There's different approaches. I think you first want to figure out what is physically desired. So like what shape you want. We have Chakrubs that are slim in size. We have Chakrubs that have curves. We have, like you said, the Yanni eggs that are for mainly for pelvic floor exercises. We have anal plugs, we have prostate plugs, we have cock rings. So I think the first thing to approach is, what do you desire on a physical level? Once you figure out what you want on that physical level, then you go into the actual crystal type and what metaphysical benefits it offers. So you can do this in a multitude of ways. You can just kind of sense the energy of the stone by looking at it and seeing what you're most attracted to. Or you can read the descriptions and say, okay, rose quartz is really good for self-esteem and having a nurturing, comforting, healing energy, while as obsidian is good for, it's a stone that will uncover certain repressed desires that I might want to explore. Or amethyst is a good stone for anxiety. So if you have anxiety when it comes to having sex, that might be something good, you know. So so looking at what you want physically first, then deciphering what stone is going to be most valuable to you in terms of what you're looking for on that metaphysical level.
So the go-to toy that should, or go-to chakrub that should be in every woman's purse next to her hot sauce?
I think that if you're going to carry something around with you, it should be the Yanni egg, which is an egg-shaped crystal, and it is good for strengthening the pelvic floor and connecting with yourself wherever you are, because it can just stay in you while you're doing the dishes or shopping or anything. So definitely check those out.
Yes. And Vanessa, please tell our listeners where they can find you. I'm sure that they're waiting on bated breath for your new line. So tell the listeners where we can find you.
So Instagram, we're at Chakrubs. Twitter, we're at Chakrubs. It's chakrubs.com. You can also follow me personally, Vanessa_Cuccia. And then you can also follow our publication that you mentioned earlier, Freak Magazine.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. On behalf of Danny, myself, we cannot tell you, you're actually our first guest. And I know this is not going to be the last time we will be speaking on our wonderful Unprovoked Tangents platform. So we thank you for your time and your energy and just the knowledge that you have brought to us as well as our listeners. It is totally invaluable and an important conversation to have. So we are just in full gratitude to you and your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Welcome back. And now is a segment that we like to call the death sentence, where we will kill a word or a phrase to be banished from usage from this day forward. And today's word is brought to you by Jen.
Me! Oh my God, guys. So just because in the spirit of talking about sex and also our little brainchild that Danny and I had today in renaming the female genitalia as the kaleidoscope, and understanding that it is so vast and so beautiful and encompasses so much, that why would we ever put that organ into a box? So today, this week, we're going to kill the word box to describe a female vagina. It should never be put into a box, nor should it even relate to anything that should be put in a box. A woman's organ is beautiful, it is vast, and guess what? It is the tunnel in which life proceeds out of. So ladies and gentlemen, we are killing the word box. It is dead. It sleeps with the fishes. We don't want to hear from it anymore, okay? It is gone. It sleeps in the East River. The word box, finito. Done.
Welcome back. It was an intense episode that we just had, but talking about women's bodies, men's bodies, sex, power, relationships. And now stay tuned as Jen will take you through the ground down.
Hey guys, welcome back to our third installation of our ground down moment. We talked a lot about sex and lust and love and everything in between. So for this ground down guided meditation, we're going to really focus on the sacral chakra, which is our second chakra that lays slightly below our belly. And this chakra is really focusing on where a lot of our sexual energy is stored, is where our creativity comes from, and it's also associated with the flow and the flexibility as well as our emotions. So we're going to sit up nice and tall. Close the eyes. Maybe you lengthen through the crown of the head. Take a couple deep inhales, deep exhales. And as your eyes are closed, maybe you just place both hands on your belly. Really feeling that sacral chakra. Breathing into that space that holds all of our creativity, all of our sexual energy, our sensuality, and our emotions. And as you're breathing into this space, maybe you begin to think about what your passions are in life, what drives you, what motivates you, how you express yourself, and how you exude your creativity. Just thinking about those questions as you focus on the inhalation and exhalation of the breath. Focusing all on that prana energy that runs through all the channels, not just from your belly, but throughout your entire body. And as you're taking deep inhales and deep exhales, maybe you start to just think about these affirmations, saying to yourself that you are a sensual being that's full of creative potential. Saying to yourself that you embrace life with passion, with vigor, and with excitement. Saying to yourself that you embrace your sexuality, you embrace your joy, you embrace your happiness. Maybe you start to think about you allowing yourself to be sensual and using that energy to ensure that it flows in alignment with who you are and your personality. Saying to yourself that you honor the power that is within me. And believing that your body is an instrument for creation, for creativity, and the fullest expression of your higher self. Take a couple more deep inhales, deep exhales. Breathing in. Taking that moment, believing in your infinite power, the power to bring your passions into fruition, the power to create, to be, to embody all that lives within you. And as you take your couple more deep breaths in this meditation, just think about a light that's in front of you. And think about how you can glow it up even more just by putting in the work and showing and expressing yourself in your truest form. I thank you guys so much for grounding down with me on our third episode, YAH episode. And I wish you guys the best week ever. And we look forward to bringing you a new episode next week, along with a new ground down. Thank you so much.